Imagine a Taurus who genuinely hates staying home, compulsively spends money on impulsive road trips, and gets deeply anxious when things feel, a little too stable.
Right, yeah, that just sounds completely wrong.
It really does. I mean, it shatters that very specific, almost universal image we all have of a Taurus. You know, the one, someone who is incredibly grounded, fiercely loyal, highly practical, and just completely obsessed with their comfort zone.
Oh, absolutely. We usually picture that person in your life who has their familiar routines, their highly predictable income, their favorite cozy chair, and just this absolute refusal to let anything disrupt their physical reality.
Yeah, and that picture is not entirely wrong. But if you are listening right now, you need to know it is completely incomplete. Today, we are pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources.
Yeah, some great stuff here.
Seriously, we've got a soft psychological guide to Taurus types, cross-cultural behavioral profiles, and charts blending Eastern and Western systems. The mission of this deep dive is to show you that while the classic Taurus stereotype is the foundation, well, it misses the deeper mechanics of how these people actually operate.
It really misses the nuance, yeah.
Right. We are looking at how the Chinese Zodiac year completely rewires the way that Taurus ground behaves. Okay, let's unpack this. What is the actual mechanism at play here?
Well, the absolute core concept we are working with today, and the phrase you should really keep in your head as we go through this, is this. Taurus is the ground, but the Chinese Zodiac year shapes the harvest.
Oh, I like that. So the ground stays the same, but the seed we plant in it dictates what actually grows?
Precisely. I mean, the core of Western Taurus is always going to be about steady work, creating lasting results. It's about patience, it's about practical effort, and, building financial security.
Right, the classic builder energy.
Exactly. And the goal of a mature Taurus is never to lose that fundamental stability. The real growth lesson isn't about becoming faster or louder or more restless.
So they don't need to change who they fundamentally are?
No, not at all. It's about learning how to make that stability feel alive instead of frozen. It's knowing the exact difference between when your comfort is a solid foundation and when it has quietly morphed into a cage.
Man, that's such a good way to put it. Let's see how that plays out in the real world. Our sources organize these 12 types into 4 distinct groups. Let's start with the first group, the quiet builders. This is the rat, the ox, and the dragon.
Right, the ones who really look the part.
Yeah, on the surface, these 3 seem to most closely resemble that classic Taurus builder stereotype. But if these 3 are building a house together, the rat is managing the spreadsheet and the budget, the ox is reading the mortgage documents word for word, and the dragon is making sure the house is a luxury asset that builds status.
That is a perfect analogy. The psychological strategies they use to build their lives are just vastly different. Let's look at the Taurus rat, for example. What sets them apart is that they are the practical architects of the zodiac.
Okay, what does that actually mean for them?
Well, compared to the other types, the Taurus rat is highly adaptive and incredibly financially alert. They don't just build for the sake of accumulating things, they build through concrete goals and a very specific personal mission.
So how does that look if you're working with one, say in a modern office?
Oh, in a workplace, they are the ones thriving in finance, logistics, or operations. They have this innate business sense where they can turn a chaotic side hustle into a logistical masterpiece.
Wow, so they really get things done.
They really do. And in relationships, they operate similarly. They show love through highly practical care. I mean, they're the ones who will meticulously budget for your future or, fix the broken sink to show they care.
That's so sweet, actually. But the sources point out a pretty significant shadow side here. If their energy source is cautious planning and meaningful action, what happens when they get stressed?
Yeah. Their risk is hyper-control and deep pessimism. Because they are so financially alert, they can become careerists who over-attach to money as the absolute proof of their self-worth.
Yikes. So they just dig in.
Yeah, if they feel rushed in a conflict, they dig their heels in hard. The growth recommendation for the Taurus rat is to absolutely build those ambitious goals, but to consciously remember that real wealth has to include health, love, joy, and peace.
I love that. Real wealth isn't just the bank account. Okay, let's contrast that with the Taurus ox, the steady manifester. The sources say the ox filters their stability through method, reliability, and correct information.
Yes, correct information is huge for them.
But wait, if they rely on correct information and honest words, how does that relate to the famous Taurus stubbornness?
Well, it's a completely different mechanism. For the Taurus ox, honest words and clear agreements are the actual building blocks of their reality. When they are in balance, Their thoughts and words literally become material reality.
Oh, wow. So it's a very literal manifestation.
Exactly. But because they put so much methodical, whole self effort into everything they do, they have a very painful, visceral reaction to criticism.
So it's not just a bruised ego then.
Not at all. Criticism doesn't just feel like a comment on a project they completed, it feels like an attack on their very foundation. If their method is questioned, their stability collapses.
That sounds exhausting for them.
It is. If you push them too hard in a conflict, they won't explode, they will just withdraw and become quietly immovable.
Okay, so if you're managing a Taurus ox, the recommendation is to keep communication exceptionally clean. And for the ox listening, I guess the work is learning to let feedback improve your work without letting it damage your self-worth. Match those huge expectations with highly realistic plans.
Spot on. Which brings us to the Taurus dragon, the charismatic builder of resources. If the rat builds through logistics and the ox builds through method, the dragon builds through charisma, authority, and long-term investment.
So they are the flashy ones.
Yeah, they are much more visible and status aware.
They seem like the ones who thrive in real estate, entrepreneurship, or luxury goods. Like they want to offer protection and abundance. But I see a massive trap here.
Oh, there is one.
Right. If a dragon needs status and a Taurus needs comfort, doesn't that combination create a recipe for total hedonism?
It creates the ultimate golden cage. The Taurus dragon risks severe comfort addiction. They can get so caught up in luxury spending and the visible status of what they've built that they let their actual promises fade the second routine hits.
So they just kind of check out.
Exactly. They start replacing emotional truth with outward status. They might buy you a beautiful house, but completely neglect the emotional maintenance of the relationship.
Wow. So their growth recommendation is vital. Use those resources as a form of stewardship, not just as a status symbol. They have to keep their internal growth alive, even when their external life feels incredibly comfortable.
Which is a perfect pivot to our second group, where the dynamic flips entirely. We are moving to the movement and courage types. This is the tiger, the horse, and the dog.
Okay, I have to stop you there. Here's where it gets really interesting. Movement and Taurus feel like an oxymoron to me. How does a sign famous for digging its heels in there actually handle needing freedom? Wouldn't needing constant motion cause a total psychological meltdown for a sign that just wants to sit in its favorite chair?
It sounds totally contradictory, I know, but the psychology behind it is brilliant. If the builders we just discussed risk getting stuck by standing too still, this group faces the exact opposite challenge.
Which is what?
They actually require motion and courage to keep their stability alive. If they don't move, their famous Taurus patience rots into overthinking and they completely freeze.
Oh, interesting. Let's start with the Taurus tiger, the patient protector. How does this tension play out for them?
Well, the Taurus tiger filters their stability through a massive sense of justice and deep creative reserves. They are fantastic in leadership, coaching, or advocacy.
So very socially driven.
Yes, fiercely loyal, and they demand emotional honesty. But here is the mechanism of their trap. Because they take their protective role so seriously, they want perfect certainty before they act.
And perfect certainty doesn't exist, so they just wait.
And while they wait, the opportunity disappears. This creates unused talent and a simmering, delayed aggression. They get deeply irritated because their instinct knew they should have moved, but their Taurus need for safety kept them anchored.
That makes so much sense. So their energy source has to be small, spontaneous actions. Wake up that courage without destroying the stability. The lesson for the tiger is don't wait for perfect certainty. Take a small, brave step right now before the window closes entirely.
Next is the Taurus horse. You mentioned earlier the idea of the homeowner who needs road trips. This perfectly captures their duality. They are far more restless than other Taurus types.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Right. They need strong roots, but they also desperately need open air.
Which has to be incredibly confusing for their partners.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're dating a Taurus horse, they might swing like a pendulum between craving intense, grounded closeness and suddenly needing room to breathe.
It is a really delicate balance. They excel in travel-related businesses or client-centered roles where they can have both. But their risk is emotional swings, impulsive spending, and inconsistent follow-through.
Basically a flight risk.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
When a Taurus horse feels trapped, their stability collapses into raw stubbornness.
So they need to consciously build a life that accommodates both. Build the foundation, but actively schedule a road trip so you don't burn the house down just to get some fresh air.
I love that phrase, burn the house down. That brings us to the Taurus dog, the loyal stabilizer. They filter their stability through loyalty and the ability to rebuild from absolute difficulty.
I sound like the fixers.
They really are. They have incredible crisis intelligence, thriving in therapy, social work, or crisis management. When life is at its hardest, the Taurus dog is the one who shows up and stays.
But the sources outline a really dark side to that level of responsibility. Why do they become controlling out of fear?
Well, think about what happens to your psychology when your entire identity is based on protecting people from crises. You start to see danger everywhere.
Oh, hypervigilance.
Exactly. You begin holding grudges, adopting all-or-nothing beliefs, and becoming rigid to try and control outcomes so nobody gets hurt.
So their growth recommendation is to protect those values without becoming rigid about them. Keep the dialogue open to actually learn from those repeating crisis patterns instead of just guarding the door 24/7.
Exactly. Now let's transition to our third group, the diplomatic and creative types. The rabbit, the goat, and the pig. For these types, building isn't just about pouring a concrete foundation or moving through a crisis.
It's about aesthetics, right?
Yes, it's about making the space beautiful, harmonious, and emotionally resonant.
You know, there is a huge recurring theme in the sources for these three, the absolute necessity of finishing what they start. Why is simply finishing a project such vital emotional medicine for them rather than just a basic productivity hack?
This is a fascinating mechanism. For the rabbit, goat, and pig, an unfinished project isn't just a messy desk. It is an open loop of anxiety. It represents a fundamental lack of harmony in their physical environment.
Wow, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, so when they actually push through and finish something, it restores their nervous system. It proves to them that resources exist, that their effort matters, and that inspiration can become physical reality. Completion is literally how they reclaim their energy.
That's amazing. Let's look at the Taurus rabbit, the diplomatic finisher. They seem to combine passion with intense practicality. They have tact, charm, and this quiet competitive grace.
They really do. They are fantastic in HR, mediation, or high-level sales. They create profound peace in their relationships, but their risk is that they love harmony so much, they will actively avoid naming actual problems.
Sweeping things into the rug.
Pretty much. They feel psychologically safer keeping a superficial piece than addressing the rot in the floorboards. They also risk relying way too much on their natural luck and charm instead of having an actual strategy.
So the recommendation is to back that charm with a tangible plan. Finish the work and release those old comfort attachments when it is time to grow. Don't just smile through a broken system.
Exactly. Then we have the Taurus goat, the creative comfort builder. They filter stability through beauty, comfort, and creative devotion. They are highly emotional and incredibly sensitive to approval.
So they need that validation.
Yes, deeply. They create romance and warmth, often thriving in design, food, art, or therapy-adjacent work.
But their major risk is passivity. The sources say they can easily mistake applause or social approval for actual love.
Yes, they dramatize their feelings. The danger is that they use comfort as a substitute for action. They might sit on a velvet couch feeling deeply inspired to write a book, and that feeling of inspiration is so comforting that they never actually write a single page.
Oh man, I feel attacked. Which is why their recommendation is to choose their dreams carefully and support that inspiration with hard discipline. Stop using comfort as an excuse to avoid the messy work of creation.
Right, you actually have to write the book.
Exactly. And then there's the Taurus pig, the generous, grounded expander, warmer, more expansive, filtering stability through generosity, abundance, and practical kindness.
They thrive in international business, community work, or hospitality. They are the ones who give through food, money, and emotional warmth. But here's the mechanism of their specific struggle.
Okay, what is it?
Pig energy demands generosity and expansion, but Taurus grounds it in physical resources. This creates a massive boundary issue.
Oh, the classic giving from an empty cup scenario.
Worse, they give the cup itself away. The Taurus pig risks massive excess and boundary loss because they feel this immense pressure to be good and generous, completely ignoring their own personal needs in the process.
So the recommendation for the Taurus pig is to finish what you start, but give generously with strict boundaries. Keep your values rooted in reality, not just in what makes you socially admired.
Perfect. That brings us to our final group, the information and precision types. That's the snake, the monkey, and the rooster. We are moving away from the feeling-based diplomats and entering the realm of pure intellect.
It sounds like these three treat life like a giant, meticulously organized Excel spreadsheet to stay safe. But surely the real growth lesson isn't just building a better spreadsheet.
No, the lesson is learning when to close the spreadsheet and actually live. They build their physical stability on a foundation of information, precision, and clean communication. They use data to self-soothe.
Okay, give me an example.
Take the Taurus snake, the strategic materializer. They are highly analytical and psychologically complex. Their talent is taking hidden patterns and turning them into physical results.
They thrive in research, psychology, law, or strategy. And in relationships, they need intense psychological safety. They show loyalty through deep, focused attention. But what happens when that safety isn't there?
When a Taurus snake feels unsafe, their trauma response is to gather more information. They think, if I just research this for one more week, I'll be safe.
Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. This leads to profound perfectionism and endless analysis. They risk missing out on actual opportunities because they get trapped in dogmatic thinking and secrecy.
So the medicine for the snake is to force themselves to choose one opportunity and actually act on it. Let that inner alignment become disciplined, practical action. Don't just research the plan, execute it.
Next is the Taurus monkey, the clever practical improver. The monkey is more playful and flexible. They use their wit, their fast learning, and their memory to practically improve systems.
They sound like the optimization junkies.
Oh, totally. They are the tech developers, the analytics people, the product improvers. They show care by solving your daily problems to make your life more efficient.
So if the monkey is so fast and clever, why would a Taurus monkey ever get stuck? It seems like they'd be the most productive of all of them.
Because their cleverness turns into profound skepticism. They focus so intently on finding flaws to improve the system that they postpone launches, delay projects, and reject big ideas because one tiny detail isn't perfect.
Oh, I've worked with people like that.
Right. They measure everything, but in doing so, they completely miss the emotional truth of a situation.
Because you can't optimize an emotion, and it doesn't fit neatly into a data cell. So their recommendation is to release their work before it is absolutely perfect. Use your cleverness to build, not to delay.
And our final type, the Taurus rooster, the disciplined partner. They filter their stability through an intense work ethic, diplomacy, and moral or social order.
So they play by the rules.
Very much so. They are the polished consultants, the lawyers, the HR directors. They desperately want shared values and ethical agreements.
But the sources outline a really fascinating shadow here: dependency. They want peace and partnership so badly that they risk losing their own identity entirely.
Yes. A Taurus rooster might accept double standards just to avoid rocking the boat. They confuse superficial harmony with actual truth.
Meaning they ignore the real problems.
Exactly. They polish the surface of a relationship to make it look good while completely ignoring the structural damage underneath.
Wow, so their growth recommendation is to fiercely keep their individual identity inside cooperation. Study the situations that keep repeating in your life and correct the deeper pattern rather than just maintaining appearances.
Exactly. So if we pull all 12 of these together, the overarching lesson for every single Taurus type is this: the goal is never to move faster. The goal is to move consciously.
So what does this all mean?
It means there is absolutely no shame in wanting comfort, wanting financial security, or wanting loyalty. Those are real, valid human needs.
Yeah, we all want those things. But the true work is noticing the subtle shift. It's noticing when your need for comfort morphs into a fear of the unknown. It's noticing when your famous patience becomes a convenient excuse for delay. Or, when your money becomes your entire identity.
Exactly. A mature Taurus doesn't stop being a Taurus. They just make their stability wiser, warmer, and more adaptable to the specific harvest they are meant to bring in. By identifying your specific Chinese zodiac overlay, you learn the precise mechanism of how your body, your mind, and your motivation actually come back online when you get stuck.
Whether that's through honest words, spontaneous action, finishing a creative project, or just quiet planning. And for you listening, here is something to chew on long after this deep dive ends. Taurus is legendary for its stubbornness, right? We all know that. But what if, instead of being stubborn about keeping things exactly the same, you decide to be stubbornly committed to making sure your comfort zone never, ever becomes a cage?